Hello everyone, I am Claire Smith and today I will explain my research that I conducted for my Bachelor thesis at the Maastricht Science Programme. Enjoy and thank you for watching. We are in a society of misinformation and polarized opinions, and it is of great importance to understand the process in which people update their beliefs. There is a mathematical model to describe this process. This is the Bayesian framework. It is a theoretical model that describes this process of integrating new information into prior beliefs to obtain an updated belief. Bayesian updating occurs when one's prior belief is adjusted due to the knowledge of new information, depending on one's confidence in this new information relative to the confidence in their original belief. Within this framework, a phenomenon called motivated reasoning can occur. Motivated reasoning is defined as the distorted integration of new information in desirable directions. Motivated reasoning has an important effect on the way people assess the veracity of information and helps to understand why individuals form inaccurate and polarized beliefs. There are different types of motives and biases that explain why reasoning can be motivated and non-linear. Certain biases are the result of one's motivation to confirm prior beliefs or to believe the most desirable conclusion. Other biases are mostly about the sources rather than the contents of the information. One of these is identity bias, that results in someone weighing a source of information over another due to one's valuable identity. This is because of the belonging to a group. People will be biased into believing information given by it to protect their identity and their relationship to the group. Another important bias underlying motivated reasoning is credibility bias. This is present when someone is inclined to find a source of information more credible than another. Credibility bias and identity bias are related to the sources of information and not to the content itself. So to make sure there are no other content-related biases present to complicate the picture, I use neutral information and non-neutral sources. Let's illustrate this. I could want to believe content from a source because it is in line with my own belief, or because I am biased towards this group that is the source. However, if the content given by this source is neutral, then the reason I want to believe content from this source has to be because of the bias towards the source itself. There have been many studies demonstrating these biases occur when people are to update their beliefs about political or other opinion-triggering information. Specifically, identity bias and credibility bias have been observed when this content is given by specific sources. The problem remains that in previous research it has been difficult to differentiate these two types of motivated reasoning when observing the belief updating process, because the sources someone shares beliefs with are often those that someone finds credible too. In that case, the belief updating process is observed as the same even though different biases may be underlying it. This is the observational equivalence problem. To find a solution to this problem, for my research thesis, I investigated how the use of external incentives affects the belief updating process in an identity triggering context. Incentives are used to drive a certain behavior that is motivated by the outcome of this behavior. In this project, monetary incentives were used to provoke the motivation to be accurate. In one condition, the participants received a higher bonus if answers were accurate, while the other group of participants got a fixed payment. The comparison between these two groups' updating processes enabled to test the role of incentives in differentiating and clarifying the motives behind the belief updating process. This study was conducted in an online experiment performed by Republican and Democrat American participants. These opposing groups are increasingly polarized and thus allow the presence of identity-based updating. Their task consisted in a series of neutral estimations wherein the participants could make use of the feedback received from their four advisors. These advisors were Democrat or Republican and consistently reliable or unreliable, so that participants could learn to trust a certain advisor or not over time. Overall, it was expected that the external incentives would have the effect of shifting towards a credibility bias-based updating process due to increased accuracy motives and decreased identity protective motives. In such a process, the trust in sources is updated over time, as the participant learns about how reliable or unreliable they are.
Funding for this research was of good use as misinformation has damaging consequences on society. Understanding more about the decision-making process is aimed for purely scientific research purposes and not to ultimately manipulate people's beliefs. The platform used for this online experiment was Academic Prolific, which has safe privacy protection. Unfortunately, real participants could not be used for the feedback that was given to the main participants, although these were actually told that the advice came from people who had completed the task a few days before. This means that the study involved deception, which is acceptable as none of these results will actually be published.
Due to the small sample size, no significant conclusions could be made from the study. The methods should be revised carefully, and the sample size should be increased for future research. Nevertheless, this study is a step forward in understanding the context in which identity-based belief updating takes place. The current methods provide a research trajectory to overcome the problem of observational equivalence with external incentives. Ultimately, by understanding the process in which people update their beliefs, this will provide insight on ways to fight misinformation and belief polarization. While monetary incentives are not directly applicable to the crisis of misinformation, seeing how belief updating processes can be altered is promising for finding accuracy drives in the processing of new information.